Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is SeaTactics for the when and was known as Benny. You're wondering, okay. So what's going on here, SeaTactics? Well, first of all, you're seeing gameplay, and you're like, well, this is an Anime Friday. You're doing anime. Well, I'm not going to put anime footage in this for, to start out. This is just a special one-off video. The viewer by the name of Bill Asperger, still not going to get old to me. It's still new to me. It will never be old. That's always a new name to me. Every time I see it, it will always surprise me. He asked me my opinions on the ending and such, and I decided, let's just do something different. Let's kick it up a beat, as they say. Yeah. Mushroom Hunting. That's a really good song. The Cowboy Bebop soundtrack. It says "kick up the beat" in it, so I, thought I would mention that. So, Blue Gender, what is the ending about? Well, first of all, we really have to start at the beginning, and I've got some notes here that I want to read. First of all, just to start off, I really think Marlene is the main character of the show. I mean, she has the most growth, and she's really a dynamic character, if you know what that means. And a dynamic character means the character starts at one stage, and by the end, she grows, or he or she grows into this different, or thing even, grows into a different character. And Marlene is this. Throughout the series, we see her become kind of a tsundere-ish character. If you're familiar with that kind of anime trope, she's not really a tsundere, so don't immediately assume, oh, she's a tsundere. She's totally different from that. Basically, Marlene is a really great example of a dynamic character, actually. And especially with using romance. Through the romance, I think a lot of her arc really kind of completes with the romance of the series. And obviously this is a heavy spoiler episode, as you saw from the title. So we already know at this point that Yuji and Marlene get together, and Marlene is having Yuji's son, or a daughter, or child. We'll just say child at this point. I don't know why I said son, because we don't know for sure what the child's gender is. But with Marlene being this kind of dynamic character, in my opinion, I actually kind of think Yuji, and a lot of people will say, or well, at least the show kind of, it seems like at first, Yuji may seem more like the main character, as from the first episode, it kind of tells you that it's about getting this guy to planet Earth 2, or it's not planet Earth 2, it's just Second Earth. It's what the whole first half of the anime is about. But you kind of come to find out, like I said, the story really focuses a lot on Marlene, and I think Yuji is more of a vehicle for the series and for Marlene to move forward. And that's obviously true in a lot of ways, if you think about it a little bit, but what I mean by that, and he's more of a vehicle, is Yuji doesn't really do a whole lot in the show. I mean, he's really protected a lot by Marlene and the crew, and sure, he does some things to protect himself quite a bit, but for the most part, he's really in the background of the series only to start a kind of slow build of a romance going a little bit. The first climax, I think there's around 3 climaxes for the romance in this whole series, and which is one of the reasons why I like the romance from this so much. There's 3 moments that all make relatively good sense, in my opinion. But Yuji in the beginning, he's the vehicle. He's the guy who's like, okay, we gotta get from point A to point B, and you're the reason why we're getting to point A to point B. We have to protect you. We have to get you there. But he also kind of starts his story with Marlene, where he kind of falls in love with Marlene, and it's really cute. It's kind of like a high school romance. That's how it starts out. Yuji, and they don't really explain this a lot, but you can kind of get from it that Yuji hasn't really had a lot of experience with women, and that he's kind of shy, especially when Marlene wraps her arms around Yuji to teach him how to hold a gun. He kind of blushes a little bit because he's never had, really, at least that's what we're getting from that scene, a woman, especially as beautiful as her, near him. And so I think because of all of that, I think Yuji is definitely the vehicle of the series. And this series, and here's the thing, a lot of people may right off the bat say, you know what, this series is, it's like Starship Troopers, it's just fighting insects, but in my opinion, they're really fighting monsters. We find out that it's more based off a human cell called the B cells that kind of rapidly grow out of control and transform these animals into horrific monsters, and just so happened insects were the choice. And I think a great choice. I don't think it's Starship Troopers. I think a lot of people say that. I don't agree with that at all. Just because there's insects and just because it's, people fighting against insects to get to Second Earth, that doesn't make it Starship Troopers. Come on. That's just one thing that is vaguely in common. And these insects are totally different from the ones we've seen in Starship Troopers. And they weren't really even insects. They were more alien creatures. And these are not alien creatures. These were born on Earth. But it shows way more depth than Starship Troopers. That's the other thing, is people make that comparison. But if you've read manga, or if you've seen shows like Berserk or Monster, you'll find a lot of things in common with these two series and this series. The story is really in depth, and the characters, the progression, and how much they spend on these characters and the world building. It's a lot like Evangelion as well as with Berserk and Monster. Well, for example, let me give you an example of this. Let me scroll through my notes here. Well, first of all, they have kind of a weird way of showing sex throughout the world. This is an example of a world building kind of thing. I said this in my review, which you can go check out right now. It's up. I said this in my review, but they kind of treat the world and the women inside of it not like, well, it's not just women, it's also men as well. But because they show later on that women will also make advances towards men the same way men make advances towards women in this. But it's basically a free-for-all in that anyone can just start grabbing each other's tits or dick or butt or whatever, and they get the point like, oh, we're gonna go bang out. And sometimes people will start, groping each other, grabbing each other's tits or whatever it may be in front of other people. It's this weird way of showing that Yuji kind of, in the characters, Marlene, and everyone, kind of live in this dystopian, I wouldn't say exactly dystopian or 100% dystopian, because it's a post-apocalypse anime, but it has dystopian features to it, especially on Second Earth. It's kind of a dystopia in that way. They build the characters that way. But to go back to Yuji for a moment, I want to mention something. When I said characters build off of each other, I don't think I said that actually, but characters do build off of each other in this series. These characters evolve, and the one way they build off of each other is a really good example, I think. Yuji and Yoon. Yoon is a little girl with a dog, and Yuji vows to protect her with all of his life, with all of his energy that he can. He will protect this little girl. But before they evacuate, before I can't remember the dude's name, kills himself and blows up this whole island full of blue, Yoon. It's just they do this a couple times as well, but basically one of these blue fly by and just instantly kill Yoon. Like I said, they do that a lot. Shut up, phone, in the series, and I think at this point, this is the starting point of where Yuji starts to become more than just a vehicle to this series. And like I said, he is a vehicle. I think he's primarily the vehicle, but he does change quite a bit. He starts as a boyish character, kind of young, kind of brash, kind of I don't want to be in this world. This world is very cruel to me. This is not the world that I wanted to wake up in. Why isn't my illness cured? And we find out later it's not really an illness per se, as it's just a thing that he inherently has that will, if he lets it out of control, will turn him into one of the blue. But he's like, I don't want to be in this world. And I think after Yoon dies, he kind of realizes that, time to wake up, kid. It's time to wake up. You're in this world. We got to get through this. And that's kind of, I think, the starting point where Yuji starts to develop more character than just, oh, I have a crush on, a sort of pseudo-crush at that point on Marlene, or I'm just a kid from another time. I've been dealt shit cards. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to help out, but I don't really care as much. And that's another thing. Marlene kind of starts off as this emotionally detached character, really to anything. She doesn't really show a lot of emotions, not even to her comrades even. She will have sex with those. Well, this is the thing. All she really does is have sex with her comrades. That's the only kind of affection she kind of shows towards her comrades. And Yuji kind of, this is kind of building off the romance kind of thing. Yuji kind of starts to change Marlene, helps Marlene realize that there is a different perspective to view this world in. And this kid kind of comes into her life, and he changes her by the first moment they kind of even meet. Because the first kind of episode, he has an argument with Marlene, who is kind of the ringleader of this whole kind of ragtag military group type thing. Because of this challenge, Marlene, slowly it breaks down her walls to realize that there's more to this world than just being an emotionless soldier doing the job, and realizes that it will get no one nowhere. And this kind of builds on the romance thing, like I said. It really shows how mature the anime is, and it's very gradual, and it makes sense because someone like Marlene, I think, would fall in love with Yuji in that world, because Yuji is so different, and Marlene, she kind of experiences the same thing all the time. She meets kind of the same people with the same attitude. She's really just a walking bag of meat, I think, to a lot of, I'm not saying that, like women are just walking bags of meat, and I think it goes to things, extends to the male characters as well. I think she's living. She's not really, and she makes the point of, when Yuji kind of confronts her about the whole sex thing and why is it so open, like, did you not love this guy who died? And she's like, no, I did not love this guy who died, because why would I? I just wanted to have sex to feel alive. I wanted someone to touch me and make sure that I am numb to this world right now. I need someone to help me through this. And that really, it challenges her view, and it makes her kind of, that's not really the tipping point of her growth, I think. I think it's a little bit more gradual than that. I think Yuji's kind of starts immediately. I think Marlene still kind of lags behind a little bit in her kind of character growth. It doesn't really start until after they escape that island for Marlene to grow. So probably around the same, it's an episode difference, but it's still a good enough difference. Really, I think Marlene's VR test for combat is the point where Marlene's character officially starts to change to where she's almost a different person, this is after they get back to Second Earth and they go in this virtual reality kind of program thing and they fight, and she's not shooting the enemies, and she's being told to leave this person behind. And she's not. She picks up her comrade and drags her, and that's how Yuji kind of starts to change her, because she realizes that I do care about these people in some way. Why wouldn't I? They're my comrades, and that's something that kind of Yuji taught her, and that really does, I think, also kind of play a little bit into the, if you watch a lot of anime intro and outro songs, watch the intro and outro songs for this series and listen to the lyrics, because a lot of that is really portrayed in into Marlene's character. In fact, Laura Bailey, the person who plays the English version of Marlene in this series, we all know Laura Bailey. She's pretty huge. She's a big deal. She sings the songs for this and does the does the voice acting for Marlene. Yeah, you can find a lot. You can find more character growth outside the series from Marlene. And I think if you're listening to those lyrics, this is kind of another good point. This is kind of where this really kind of starts, where she changes into a different character completely, where she makes the change to now she's made up her mind that inside she for sure cares about Yuji more than just getting the package to the site, And by that point, by episode 16, Yuji is now changing into a different person, and not in a good way either. The way he kind of treats, treats people, and turns, he kind of. Okay, so sleepers, they're kind of different people, right? And Yuji's a sleeper, for example. Let's turn it back a little bit. He's treating people different because he has these blue cells, and he's getting more angry. And it shows that he's kind of going insane with a little bit of power. And obviously, Marlene kind of notices this. She doesn't like this, so she gets kind of worried about Yuji. And Yuji, by 17, just the next episode, seems to completely be losing his sanity at this point. There's only a little bit that's left of him at this point. Marlene obviously is really worried about this, but in this episode, he doesn't really know how to solve the problem. And because Yuji starts to overwork himself, Marlene really needs to get his attention. Marlene really needs to bring him back. And there's this really good example of this, where Yuji loses it a little bit, where he sees civilians and he goes, these are civilians, these are not part of our mission. Whereas before, in stark contrast, Marlene said the same thing before, with the indoctrination of Second Earth and stuff like that, of the things she's kind of grew up in and what she's been taught. We notice that Yuji kind of starts to take on those traits a little bit. And really, you start to realize in this episode that sleepers are very dangerous. So much so that they'll kill anyone at some points. And I mean, it's so bad that Yuji is kind of he's keeping track of his kills, of how many blue he's killed, and he's making it a contest with this other sleeper. And it's really fucking, fucked up, right? So by episode 19, Marlene is told, you have to go save Yuji at this point. If you let Yuji become insane with this power, he will turn into a blue. He will turn into a monster. And the B cells are taking over Yuji, and by episode 14, Marlene is now forced to fight Yuji to stop him from becoming a blue. Right before it seems Yuji is going to actually there's this part where Yuji seems like he's going to go and kill Marlene, and he's talking and he's like, I can't kill you, you're always there, why can't I kill you? And he gets angry and rips apart her mech unit and just leaves her stranded. And at this point, Yuji believes he is this killing machine. But to bring him back in a true romance way, right? And I think this is a very good way to, once again, the second time they reveal the feelings, for each other. Marlene reveals her true feelings to Yuji to try and bring him back. This is the last ditch effort, and it works. It works. And by episode 22, we skip a couple episodes, and the B cells are taking over all the sleepers. So Alicia gets taken over by the B cells from this other bad dude. I forget his name. We may have it somewhere. Tony, I believe. Yeah, Tony. Tony gives her these B cells, kind of take this, and she becomes insane, and she takes over Second Earth, with Tony. And by the end now, Yuji understands that he has to kill Tony after being betrayed by him. There's no stopping this. They've both gone mad with power. And then the next episode, Alicia shows up and she confronts Yuji. But Marlene is very quick to notice the gun there, and Marlene obviously warns her, and it brings up this whole confrontation about the B cells and stuff, and what happened with Alicia, and how she got mad with these B cells. And Alicia, I think Rick tries to kill Alicia, and then Yuji jumps in front of Alicia, is like, no, we can save her, we can help her. And then Alicia pulls out a knife, and it goes to stab Yuji and possibly kill him. And Rick, Rick is great, by the way. I love Rick in the series. One of my favorite secondary characters. Pulls the gun on her and kills her. And it's one of these very sad moments, actually. And they don't focus on it a lot, because I think there's many good reasons they probably had to move on with the show, but it really shows that Yuji, I think they could have went into this a little bit more with Yuji about, can I save anyone? Like, I could have saved Alicia, but I didn't, like, why? Why did this happen? Alicia was my friend, Tony was my friend, why would they do this? And so after this, they make their way to Tony and the B cells and blah, 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 and it turns into this huge, like, fucking big boss ending, right, where they have to fight this big boss. I think he mutates into the big boss. It's like this big blue. And then after, well, actually, no, Tony dies, and then they go fight the big boss back on Earth. After the dude agrees, the guy who's in charge of Second Earth, he's like, all right, we'll let you go back, because at this point they agreed that Second Earth is now the home of humanity, which is like a very bad decision. This is obviously a bad decision for anyone involved to be on this. They will be overthrown, they're going to run out of resources, and that happens by the end, by the way. They overtake it, and everyone destroys Second Earth, while what's left on humanity is back on planet Earth, surviving and rebuilding humanity. But they go back down and they fight the big boss, right? And Yuji kills him in this awesome way. And then at the end, there's like this life core or something like that of the blue. And it's made to seem like Yuji's going to go and sacrifice himself for the good fight. And then Marlene, she's kind of helpless in this. And this is kind of where it's Yuji's moment, I think, to kind of save the Earth. And I think this is a really beautiful ending. I think a lot of people are very wish-washy on this series, and I don't understand why. I think it's a very good series. But I think the ending is perfect. I mean, it definitely puts it into it. It's a happy ending that made sense. Yuji survives, and they go on. Marlene goes on to mother his child, and I assume they have a great relationship together and a great life together in this new world. I guess it's this new world. I don't know if it's exactly revealed that all the blue have died. They weren't very forefront of that, but I think they did that to kind of keep the viewers guessing as to, hey, is this going to happen? But to answer the question, is the ending good? I think the ending's great. Actually, I think it's the best possible ending for this series. I think you couldn't have done any better. I think, sure, you maybe could have explained where the blue have gone, but like I said, I think it was a stylistic choice to have it that way. I think the whole series... that was a weird sound, okay. I think the whole series kind of builds up to this great moment that everybody can really get behind and really enjoy. There's a great romance, the action's great, and the whole series, I think, it starts from the bottom, right? And it builds all the way up to this great ending. And I think you could have asked for anything better. I think if you don't enjoy this, then I think that's fine. But I suggest that you go back and review it, because I think it's honestly think it's a great anime. Look at it from a different point, maybe. Maybe watch it as a devil's advocate, you know, against your own points. Try to find things that are good about this series because, sure, it may have its problems sometimes, I guess. I don't know, I didn't see any, personally. And if there is, please point them out to me. I'd like to have a discussion. That's what this video is about. That's what this review is about. I loved it. I just personally loved it. There's nothing really I can add to this. I mean, I kind of did an in-depth discussion of the whole series there. And I kind of explained all the points that I had in my notes pretty well. Blue Gender, man, watch it. It's a great series. If you haven't already, if you're okay with spoilers, I mean, if you're watching this, you haven't watched it, you're obviously okay with spoilers. Go watch it. Go watch it. I did not do a good enough explanation of the series. Just go watch it. It's really good. There's a lot of deep moments in it that really build up to the ending and make it worthwhile. It kind of has two endings, really. It has, I guess, the bad ending and it has the good ending. It starts with the bad ending at like episode 24, ends with 26 with the good ending. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked my thoughts and impressions, I guess, on Blue Gender, then this is what this video is about, and this is a video for you guys, for Bill Asperger, who asked for it. And I won't do this every time, but if you ask me to do it, I may do it sometimes. I'm not going to promise. I'm not going to promise it. But I'll see you guys later. My name is SeaTactics for the win, otherwise known as Ben, signing out.